You'll notice gate statuses in the window at the top of the screen. So be careful, because not all gates will always be ready for extraction. So let's head home with our loot, shall we?
No.
What excites us most about this survival mode of gameplay is that the core experience is truly the Pantheon loop we have been working towards, only with a time limit.
Hey everybody, TBC here. It's finally time to talk to you and give my thoughts about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Now the dust is starting to settle on the leaks we had a few weeks ago that have pretty much all been confirmed that Pantheon is going ahead and becoming a lobby shooter. And I know they're calling this a survival extraction game that lends itself well to the MMO sphere, the fantasy setting. To me, the parallels with Eternal Crusade are so close. I'm calling it a lobby shooter. I wanted to give my thoughts on this change and why I stopped paying for access to MMOs, or paying to support early access, or paying to fund development over the last few years. And I've certainly been burnt in the past. The first MMO I supported was Crowfall. I liked the look of it, and I pitched in a little bit of money to get early access and support the development. So let's see how that's going. Oh dear. The only other one I supported was Warhammer 40k Eternal Crusade. So let's check in there too. There's a pattern here. But first, let's start by giving a quick rundown about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This MMO by Visionary Realms wanted to bring an old school community driven approach to the MMO gaming sphere, and it was the brainchild of Brad McQuaid, Aradun, rest in peace. Definitely someone who was a dreamer and one of the founding fathers of the MMO sphere and EverQuest, which really was his brainchild. His influence is all over the game, certainly early on, and the initial few kind of expansion followed his vision of what the game should be. Eventually he left and founded his own company, Sigil, who created their own game, Vanguard Saga of Heroes, which really went unsung at the time. It had a very rough start and never really hit where it should have done, which was a shame because it actually was a very good game with really good crafting in it, but it was rushed to release and it really showed, and it hurt them that they never recovered from. And eventually it was bought by Sony, who kind of tried to patch things all together, and it kind of bobbled along for a couple of years before eventually being shut down. Brad went back to working on EverQuest for a few expansions before again leaving to start his own company, Visionary Realms. And he certainly was a visionary in the MMO sphere. But Pantheon was announced now in 2013. Pantheon was announced way back in early 2014 by way of a Kickstarter. They were looking for $800,000. They had a 5-minute video which basically boiled down to about 30 seconds of pre-alpha footage. Yes, we are still in pre-alpha. And a bunch of art and a load of dudes talking about how awesome this game's gonna be. 10 years later, we're still in pre-alpha. 10 years later, we're still not seeing much of the game. 10 years later, we're still left wondering if this is gonna come out. And I've seen a lot of videos in the last week or two where people have been drawing comparisons to Camelot Unchanged, and very similar what they decided to do in kind of switching their game. But I wanted to give another story about Warhammer 40k Eternal Crusade, which followed a very similar path. Warhammer 40k Eternal Crusade was made by a Behavior Montreal-based company and was announced way back in 2013 as an MMORPG. We never saw an MMORPG from Eternal Crusade. The developers of Eternal Crusade promised the world. They promised an open world, always on experience with real-time battles that take place organically with various factions. And if you know your 40k, you've got your Space Marines, your Orcs, Eldar, Chaos, they were all going to be represented. PvE battles as well with Tyranids. This was going to be every 40k fan's dream experience, what everyone's been hoping for from the 40k world, a true MMO game. We never got that. We never got that. Over the years, the developers promised and promised and promised that more was going to be coming. And what we eventually got was a lobby shooter. But it actually wasn't a terrible game. And when they announced the lobby shooter, they kind of like announced it that, okay, this is what we're going to do. These maps that we're making for the lobby shooter, they'll all be encompassed in the game. So it's helping us with the development. It's helping us with balance. It's helping us make new weapons and new classes and skills and so on, and vehicles. And we'll bind it all together into a big world, and it'll work. Trust us, it'll work. But this, we wanted to make sure you could have fun and play the game right here, right now, as a lobby shooter if you pay us for access. So I did. I paid for access, and early on it was rough, but it was fun. You know, especially if you had a group of friends all playing together over voice comms. That's where the real fun became. But it didn't last, and it dropped off very quick. The player base abandoned them. They saw promises go unfulfilled. They saw devs sweating on live streams, unable to answer their questions or refusing to do so, or promising that these new weapons or Terminators will be coming in the next patch. The next patch never came. We never got the promised Terminators. We never got the always on world. We never got the big open world battles. The closest we come was one siege map, which was fun when you could get it, because the player base dwindled so much it became too small, unmanageable, and not fun. You'd be queuing for hours just to get one game, and in the end they didn't renew the license for the IP and for the servers that they rented from Amazon, and the game got shut down. And it's very easy now to draw those parallels between Warhammer 40k, Eternal Crusade, an MMO that needed to switch to a lobby game in order to drive funding so they could carry on making the MMO. But in the end, the MMO kind of got pushed to the side. They went full on with creating a lobby shooter, and eventually it failed because it wasn't what the fans wanted. It wasn't what your player base had paid for. And whilst it was fun for a little bit, there were so many issues and problems and hackers that people just quit and never went back to it. And you only had to look at the Steam numbers for player base before it eventually got shut down. And this is Pantheon's future. This is what they're on a collision course for. I don't know who they've made this lobby shooter game for, but not me. They're promising that you can go in and do crafting and all this kind of stuff and PvE. Why? Who's going to do that? That's not what this game should be. It's not the game that we wanted. It's not the game that a whole bunch of people have backed. But it's the game we're getting. And I can't see a future beyond that right now. Pantheon's in trouble. I hope that this lobby game that they're going to be putting out is a success and is fun. I'll certainly try it if they open it up to the public. I'll give it a go. But will it hook me enough to say, yeah, I can actually see the MMO under all this, under these Fortnite graphics and that they've switched to, and lobby-based gameplay? Will there be a game and an MMO I can look forward to? I'm worried for Pantheon. And this is why I no longer support pre-release games. Thank you so much for watching this video about Pantheon. Like I said, I'm kind of kept myself very, very distant from Pantheon. I try not to get too excited about upcoming MMOs because we see it time and time again. They don't live up to expectation. The only one I maybe got a little bit closer to is the folks over at Monsters and Memories. That's a passion project, and you can see that with the development, and they're doing it in their spare time. And you know, I jump on for their stress tests when I can. We'll see if that again becomes and lives up to the hype. I hope it does. I hope Pantheon lives up to the hype and eventually sees its release. Same with Ashes of Creation. These are all games I'll probably play should they come out, but I'm not paying any more betas, and I'm not paying for that. As always, I just want to give a huge shout out to our channel members. Thank you so much for your continued support. It really does help me grow the channel and keep making these videos for you. If you're interested in becoming a member, the button is down below. Appreciate if you could like the video as well and leave any comments about your thought on Pantheon. Are you happy with the switch to the lobby shooter game kind of mode? Do you see this as a way forward for development? Or do you see the MMO just being left to the side with all access and dev time going towards this lobby shooter and battle passes and so on? Because that's what I see. Let me know down in the comments below. I am the Break Canuck, and as always, I hope that you have a fantastic day.